The massive doors of the Galactic Defense Academy hissed open as Drill Sergeant Cameron stepped into the orientation hall. His heavy boots made loud sounds on the metal floor. The big alien had dark green skin covered in old battle scars. His yellow eyes looked at the new group of cadets with no kindness. "Listen up, you weak creatures." His deep voice filled the room. "You think you are special because your home planet sent you here. You are wrong." The room was full of young aliens from different worlds. There were tall Galaxians with blue skin and strong muscles. Next to them stood the Asterians with their long thin arms and big heads. Some Centaurians with purple skin and fur eyes talked quietly in the corner. All of them were much bigger and stronger than the small figure standing alone near the back wall. Park Jin-woo kept his face calm, even though he could hear the other cadets making fun of him. The young human from Earth was much shorter than everyone else. His black hair was cut short and neat. His brown eyes watched everything round him carefully. "Look at that tiny thing," whispered Cadet Velthar, a Centaurian with bright blue skin. "What is it supposed to be?" "I heard it is from that new planet called Earth," said another alien. "They only just learned how to fly in space. Why would they send one here? Maybe they want to see how fast it breaks." Velthar laughed. The other cadets joined in the laughter. Cameron had been training soldiers for 40 years. He had seen the best fighters from across the galaxy. The strongest Galaxians could lift small vehicles. The smartest Asterians could solve math problems in seconds. The fastest Centaurians could run so quick they looked like blurs. But this human looked weak and small. Jinwoo's arms were thin compared to the other cadets. He did not have the thick skin of a Krex or the sharp claws of a Vorthik. He looked like he would have trouble carrying a normal weapon. "You there, human?" Cameron's voice was like thunder. "Step forward." Jinwoo walked to the front of the room. He did not look scared. He did not look worried. His steps were steady and sure. When he stopped in front of the huge drill sergeant, he looked up and met the alien's angry yellow eyes. "State your name," Cameron ordered. "Park Jin-woo, sir." "Reporting for training." The drill sergeant's mouth opened, showing sharp teeth. "Park Jin-woo, do you know why you are here?" "To learn military skills and represent my planet, sir." Some of the other cadets laughed again. Cameron raised one of his big hands, and the room became quiet. "I have been teaching soldiers since before your planet knew there were other worlds," Cameron said. "I have trained the best warriors in the galaxy. I have seen Galaxians who could punch through metal walls. I have seen Asterians who could plan battles in their sleep. I have seen Centaurians who could fight 10 enemies at once." Jinwoo nodded but said nothing. "And now they send me this." Cameron walked around Jinwoo in a slow circle. "Tell me, human, what makes you special? What can you do that these other cadets cannot?" "I can learn, sir." The answer was so simple that it made Cameron stop walking. "You can learn. That is what makes you special." "Yes, yes, sir." "All of these cadets can learn," Cameron said. He pointed at the other aliens. "They can all learn. But they are all so stronger, faster, and smarter than you." "That may be true, sir." Cameron's eyes got narrower. This human was either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both. "I am going to give you a special assignment," the drill sergeant said loudly so everyone could hear. "You will take the Omega course." The room became very quiet. Even the confident Centaurian stopped smiling. The Omega course was famous throughout the academy. It was the hardest training program they had. Most cadets needed 3 weeks to finish it. Many never finished it at all. "The Omega course, sir?" Jinwoo asked. "Yes, it tests everything a soldier needs to know. Fighting, thinking, leading, and surviving." Most of these other cadets will take easier courses first. But you will. Go straight to the hardest one. Cavern expected the human to look scared. He expected him to ask for an easier test. He expected him to quit before he even started. Instead, Jinnu stood up straighter. "When do I begin?" "Sir, right now," Cavern said. "Follow me," as they walked toward the training rooms. The other cadets watched in silence. Some felt sorry for the human. Others were excited to see him fail. A few wondered if he might surprise everyone. Cavern led Jinnu down a long hallway. The walls were covered with pictures of the Academy's best graduates. Great generals and war heroes from dozens of different worlds looked down at them in 40 years. "I have never had a cadet complete the Omega course on their first try," Cavern said as they walked. "Most take weeks, some take months, a few never make it at all. I understand, sir. Do you?" Cavern stopped and looked down at the small human. "This is not some game from your home planet. This is real military training. You could get hurt. You could fail completely." Jinnu met his eyes again. "I am ready, sir." The drill sergeant shook his head. This was going to be over very quickly. The simulation chamber was a huge round room with white walls that could change into anything. Jinnu stood in the center while Cavern watched from behind thick glass windows above. The drill sergeant's clawed fingers moved over glowing buttons and screens. "Beginning Omega course simulation," a computer voice said. "Phase 1. Zero gravity combat training." The room round Jinnu disappeared. Instead, he found himself floating in space surrounded by broken pieces of spaceships and robots that wanted to shoot him. There was no up or down, no floor or ceiling, just empty space in all directions. Most new cadets panicked when they first tried zero-gravity training. They would spin round helplessly, making themselves sick. They could not control where they went or how they moved. It usually took them many hours just to learn how to float without getting dizzy. Cavern expected to see the human tumbling through the air like a broken toy. He expected to see fear and confusion. He was ready to end the test early when Jinnu started throwing up or crying for help. But that did not happen. Jinnu pushed himself off a floating piece of metal with his feet. He moved through the air in a straight line toward his weapon. His body turned smoothly as he grabbed the training gun. Then he used another piece of metal to change direction and hide behind a larger chunk of spaceship. "Interesting," said Captain Yael, a four-armed alien who taught fighting skills at the Academy. She had come to watch because she was curious about the human. "He is not fighting against the floating. He is using it on the screens." Jinnu moved from one hiding spot to another like he had been born in space. When enemy robots shot at him, he pushed off walls to dodge their attacks. When he needed to aim at targets, he used small pushes to keep himself steady. The robots were programmed to be very hard to beat. They could shoot accurately and move fast. They were supposed to be too difficult for a beginner, but Jinnu treated them like a puzzle to solve. He would hide, then pop out and shoot one robot. Then he would quickly move to a new hiding spot before the other robots could shoot back. How is he doing this? Cavern asked himself. The human had never been in space before. His planet had only just learned how to build simple spaceships. Yet he moved like an experienced space marine. Jinnu used the floating objects around him like tools. He pushed a big piece of metal into the path of enemy fire to protect himself. He threw small objects to confuse the robots about where he was. He even used his own body weight to spin around corners in ways the robots did not expect. Target destroyed. Target destroyed. Target destroyed. The computer voice kept announcing as Jinnu hit robot after robot. In the observation room, other instructors had started to gather. Word was spreading through the academy that something unusual was happening. They watched their screens with surprised faces. Phase 1 complete. Time: 4 minutes and 12 seconds. New record for a first attempt. Cavern's mouth fell open. The previous record had been 7 minutes. Set by a Zentarian who was famous for being naturally good at flying and floating. Phase 2. Technical systems and equipment mastery. The space scene disappeared. Now Jenu stood in what looked like the engine room of a big spaceship. Machines covered the walls, making strange noises and showing lights in many colors. Alien writing covered computer screens in languages from dozens of different worlds. This test was supposed to take a long time. Cadets had to learn how each machine worked. They had to read instruction books written in alien languages. They had to fix broken equipment and run safety checks. Most cadets spent days just figuring out what each button did. Jenu walked up to the nearest machine and looked at it carefully. The writing on the screen was in Galaxian, a language that used symbols instead of letters. Humans had only learned about this language a few months ago, but Jenu started pressing buttons like he understood what they meant. "He cannot possibly know Galaxian writing," Captain Yoel said. "His species just made contact with us. Maybe he is just pressing buttons randomly," Cavern said. But he did not sound sure. On the screen, they could see Jenu was not pressing buttons randomly. He would look at a symbol, think for a moment, then press the right button. When machines made error sounds, he would try different combinations until he fixed the problem. Machine 1 online, Machine 2 online, Machine 3 online. The computer kept announcing as Jenu fixed each system. "He is finding patterns," Captain Yoel said with amazement. "Look at his eye movements. He is not trying to read the language. He is figuring out what each symbol does by watching how the machines respond." Jenu moved from machine to machine, getting faster each time. What should have taken hours of study and practice, he was learning in minutes just by paying attention and trying different things. Phase to complete. Time: 11 minutes and 37 seconds. New record for a first attempt. The instructors in the observation room started talking to each other in excited voices. Some of them were making bets about what would happen next. Others were calling friends to come watch. Cavern stared at the screens showing Jenu's test scores. Everything he thought he knew about training new soldiers was being proven wrong by this small human who should not be able to do any of this. The observation room was now crowded with instructors and senior officers. Word had spread through the academy that something impossible was happening. Everyone wanted to see the human who was breaking every training record. "This cannot be real," muttered Commander Zoldyck, the Academy's head of combat training. "Check the computers for errors." "I already did," Captain Yoel replied. "Everything is working perfectly. The human is just different." On the screens, they could see Jenu standing calmly in the simulation chamber. His heart rate showed on the medical monitors. It was steady and slow, like he was taking a quiet walk instead of facing the hardest military test in the galaxy. Phase 3. Multi-species combat engagement. The computer announced. The room round Jenu changed into a training arena. 6 holographic enemies appeared around him. Each one was from a different alien species, and each had special abilities that made them dangerous fighters. There was a Krex warrior with thick armor covering his whole body like a walking tank. A Vorthik female moved so fast she was hard to see clearly. A massive Gorthon stood over 3 meters tall with arms like tree trunks. A Zentarian floated in the air using energy wings. And a Helix assassin could turn nearly invisible. "Now, we will see him fail," Cavern said. No one can fight 6 different species at once on their first try. Most cadets would panic when facing so many enemies. The smart ones would try to hide and pick off enemies one at a time. The strong ones would try to overpower the weaker enemies first. But both strategies usually failed because the enemies were programmed to work together. Jinnu did something different. He stood very still for exactly 3 seconds, watching each enemy carefully. His eyes moved from one to another, studying how. They moved and held their weapons. Then he ran straight toward the biggest Gorthon. He has lost his mind. Commander Zoltik said, "You never attack a Gorthon head-on." But Jinnu was not really attacking the Gorthon. At the last second, he slid between the giant alien's legs and kept running toward the Vorthik. The confused Gorthon tried to turn round to follow him, but his huge body moved slowly. The Vorthik was ready for Jinnu's attack. She was much faster than any human could be. Her claws were sharp enough to cut through metal. But when she jumped at Jinnu, he was not there anymore. Instead, Jinnu had grabbed onto the Zentarian who was flying overhead. The surprised flying alien carried him up into the air just as the Vorthik's claws hit the spot where he had been standing. But the Vorthik was moving too fast to stop. She crashed right into the slow-turning Gorthon, and both of them fell down in a tangle of arms and legs. "Clever," Captain Yoel whispered. "He used their own strengths against them." From up in the air, Jinnu let go of the Zentarian and dropped down onto the Krex warrior. The armored alien was very strong, but his thick armor made it hard for him to move his arms above his head. Jinnu landed on the Krex's shoulders where the alien could not reach him. The Krex spun around trying to throw Jinnu off, but the human held on tight. While the Krex was spinning, Jinnu spotted the Helix assassin, trying to sneak up on them. The Helix thought she was invisible, but Jinnu could see the small shadows she made when she moved. Jinnu waited until the Helix was close, then jumped off the Krex's shoulders. The invisible assassin ran right into the spinning armored warrior, and both of them crashed into a wall. How did he see the Helix? Asked an instructor. Their invisibility works against all known vision types. Look at how he moves his head, Captain Yoel said. He is not just using his eyes. He is watching for sounds, air movements, even small changes in light. Humans must have very sharp senses. The Zentarian was still flying round, trying to attack Jinnu from above, but every time she dove down at him, Jinnu would move near one of the other enemies. The Zentarian would have to pull back to avoid hitting her own teammates. Meanwhile, the 2 Gorthons had gotten back up and were very angry. They charged at Jinnu with their massive fists ready to pound him into the ground. But Jinnu ran straight toward a wall and jumped up at the last second. The Gorthons could not stop in time and smashed into the wall so hard that pieces of it fell down in less than 5 minutes. All 6 enemies were defeated. Jinnu had not thrown a single punch or fired a single shot. He had simply made them all defeat themselves by using their own abilities in the wrong ways. Phase 3 complete. Time: 4 minutes and 51 seconds. Perfect score achieved. The observation room was completely quiet. Even Commander Zoltik had stopped complaining about computer errors. Everyone was staring at the small human who had just done something that military experts said was impossible. Phase 4, Strategic Command Simulation. The computer announced. This will be different, Kavran said, but his voice did not sound as confident as before. Fighting is one thing. Leading others is much harder. The arena around Jinnu disappeared and was replaced by a command center. Multiple screens showed a space battle happening around a small planet. Ships from different alien species were fighting together, but they were losing badly. Enemy forces had them surrounded. Jinnu was now in charge of the entire battle. He had to make decisions that would save thousands of lives. The fate of the planet depended on what he did next. The command center screens showed a terrible situation. Enemy ships surrounded the small planet like angry insects. The good guys were losing badly. Ships were exploding everywhere, and thousands of people were going to die unless someone could save them. Jinnu looked at all the screens round him. Each one showed different types of alien ships fighting together. There were fast Centaurian fighters that could move quickly but broke easily. There were big Gorthon battleships that were strong but slow. There were Krex defense ships with thick armor but weak weapons. And there were Helix stealth ships that could hide but could not fight many enemies at once. Incoming message from Admiral Corvex, the computer said. A holographic alien appeared in front of Jinnu. The Admiral had purple skin and 6 eyes that tall. Looked very worried. "Human commander, we are losing this battle," the Admiral said. "Our forces do not work well together. The Centaurians want to attack fast. The Gorthons want to defend slowly. The Krex want to protect everyone. The Helix want to hide and strike secretly. We cannot agree on a plan." This was the hardest part of the test. Most cadets failed here because they tried to make all the different species fight the same way. But each species was good at different things. Making them all do the same job was like asking a fish to climb a tree. In the observation room, more people had crowded in to watch. Some were high-ranking officers from other planets. Others were teachers from the Academy's most advanced courses. Everyone wanted to see what the human would do. "He will fail now," said General Thaxma, an old Galaxian with many medals on his chest. "Command is not about being clever. It is about understanding different species and their cultures." This human has only known about aliens for a few months. Jinnu studied the battle screens carefully. He could see that the enemy was using standard attack patterns. They expected the good guys to fight back in normal ways. But what if the good guys did something completely unexpected? Admiral Corvex. Jinnu said, "Please send me the commanders of each species group." Soon, 4 different aliens appeared as holograms around Jinnu. Commander Veltic was a Centaurian with bright red skin. Captain Gorek was a huge Gorthon with scars on his face. Admiral Krix had the thick shell armor of her people and shadow. Leader Nix was barely visible even in solid form. "Listen carefully," Jinnu said. "We are going to win this battle, but not by fighting the way the enemy expects." "Human," Commander Veltic said impatiently. "My fighters are the fastest ships here. We should attack their main fleet directly." "No," Captain Gorek growled. "My battleships are the strongest. We should form a defensive line and let them come to us." "Both of you are wrong," Admiral Krix said. "We should protect the planet and let our armor absorb their attacks." Shadow Leader Nix said nothing, but her sheet flickered with annoyance. "You are all right," Jinnu said. This made all 4 commanders look confused. "But you are also all wrong. You each want to do what your species does best. That is good. But you want everyone else to do the same thing. That is bad." Jinnu pointed to different parts of the battle screen. "Commander Veltic, your fast ships will not attack their main fleet. Instead, you will fly around behind them and attack their supply ships. Make them think you are trying to escape." "That sounds like running away," Veltic said angrily. "It is not running. It is hunting. Your people were hunters before they were warriors, right? Good hunters do not attack the strongest prey first. They separate the weak ones from the herd." Veltic's red skin turned a deeper color as he thought about this slowly. He nodded. "Captain Gorek," Jinnu continued, "your big ships will not defend anything. You will attack their strongest battleships head-on. But only after the Zentarians pull their support ships away. Now you are talking sense. Gorek smiled, showing big teeth, Admiral Crix. Your armored ships will do something very important. You will protect the Helix stealth ships while they get close to the enemy command ship. Protect the Helix. Crix looked surprised. But our armor is meant to protect the planet. The planet cannot be saved by just protecting it. We must defeat the enemy completely. The Helix ships are the only ones that can sneak close enough to destroy the enemy commander. Shadow Leader Nix flickered more solidly. And what will happen? While we approach their command ship, the Zentarians will make the enemy think we are running away. The Gorthons will make them think we are attacking with brute force. The Kreks will make them think we are just trying to survive, while they are confused by 3 different plans. The 4th plan will succeed. The 4 alien commanders looked at each other. This was not like any battle plan they had ever heard, but somehow it made sense. This is madness, General Thaxma said in the observation room. He is asking each species to do completely different things at the same time. No, Captain Yoel said quietly. He is asking each species to do what they do best, but at the right time and place. Look at the enemy formation. They are prepared for one type of attack, not for different types on the screen. The battle began to change. The Zentarian fighters zipped away from the main fight, making the enemy think they were retreating. The enemy ships started to chase them, spreading out their formation. Then the Gorthon battleships charged forward with loud war cries, hitting the enemy's strongest ships. While the enemy was focused on this big fight, the Krex ships moved quietly toward the enemy's back lines, protecting the invisible Helix ships as they snuck toward the command vessel. The enemy tried to respond to all 4 attacks at once, but they could not. Their ships were designed to fight one type of battle, not for different battles happening at the same time. The enemy command ship exploded in a bright flash of light. All around the planet, enemy ships began to retreat or surrender. The impossible battle had been won in less than 20 minutes. All phases complete. The computer announced total time, 58 minutes and 14 seconds. Overall score, 2,847 points. Loud alarms started ringing throughout the academy. Red lights flashed on every wall. In 40 years of operation, no cadet had ever scored higher than 1,200 points. The computers thought something was broken. Jinu stepped out of the simulation chamber looking calm and relaxed. His clothes were not even wrinkled. He looked like he had just finished taking a quiet walk instead of completing the hardest military test in the galaxy. Cavern stood in the doorway staring at him. The big drill sergeant's mouth was open and his yellow eyes were wide with shock. Behind him, dozens of instructors and officers crowded together, all trying to see the human who had just broken every record they had. "Sir," Jinu said politely, "are there other training courses I can try?" "Other courses?" Cavern's voice came out as a whisper. "Yes, sir. That was interesting, but I feel like I could learn more." Commander Zoldyck pushed through the crowd. "Impossible. Check all the computers again. Run full diagnostics. This cannot be real." "I have checked everything 3 times," Captain Yoel said. "The systems are working perfectly." The human really did complete the Omega course in less than 1 hour. But how? General Thaxma demanded. He is from a primitive planet. His people just learned about space travel. They have no military experience with alien species. Jinu looked round at all the angry and confused faces. "Would you like me to explain?" "Yes." Cavern said, "I need to understand what I just saw." They moved to a quiet meeting room away from the crowds. Cavern sat across from Jinu, still trying to make sense of what had happened. Other high-ranking officers filled the chairs round them. "Tell me about your planet." Cavern said, "Earth is difficult." Jinu said, "Almost everything there tries to kill you. The weather changes from burning hot to freezing cold. There are storms that can destroy cities, earthquakes that crack the ground open, animals with sharp teeth and claws that hunt people, diseases that spread quickly, plants that are poisonous to eat." "That sounds terrible," Captain Yoel said. "It is terrible, but it is also why humans are good at adapting. For millions of years, my people had to survive by learning quickly and changing their behavior. The ones who could not adapt died. Only the flexible ones lived long enough to have children. But other species also faced challenges. General Thaxma said, the Kreks evolved their karma. The Vorthik became very fast. The Gorthams grew big and strong. What did humans evolve? We evolved to evolve. Jinu said simply, other species became very good at one thing. Humans became okay at everything. We are not the strongest or fastest or smartest, but we can learn to be stronger, faster, or smarter when we need to be. Cavern leaned forward. "Explain the zero-gravity combat. Your species has never fought in space before. Humans have always dreamed of flying. We watched birds and wanted to move like them. When I was in zero-gravity, it felt like the flying dreams I had as a child. Instead of fighting against the floating, I used it like swimming through air. And the technical systems. You read alien languages you had never seen before. I did not really read them. I watched what happened when I pressed different buttons. Humans are very good at seeing patterns. We had to be. Or we would eat the wrong foods and die, or miss. The signs that dangerous animals were nearby. The combat simulation with multiple species. Each species had strengths. But strengths can become weaknesses if used wrong. Humans learned this by hunting animals that were bigger and stronger than us. We could not fight a mammoth with our bare hands, but we could make it fall into a pit or run off a cliff." Commander Zoldyck shook his head, but the command simulation was different. You had to understand alien psychology and military doctrine. "Not really," Jinu said. "I just had to understand that different people are good at different things on Earth. Humans learned to work together even when we were very different from each other. Some humans are good at building things. Others are good at fighting. Others are good at growing food. The best human groups use everyone's talents instead of making everyone do the same job." The room was quiet for a long moment. Finally, Cavern spoke. "For 40 years, I thought I understood what made a good soldier: strength, speed, intelligence, courage. But you have shown me something else." "What is that, sir?" "Adaptability. The ability to change and learn and grow. All the other species have reached their limits. They are as strong or fast or smart as they will ever be. But humans can become whatever they need to become." Jinu nodded. "That is what we do best." Cavern stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see other cadets training. In the practice yards, they were all very good at what their species did best. But none of them could do what this human had just done. There are advanced courses. Cavern said without turning round, "Classes designed for the best military. Mine's in the galaxy. They usually take years to complete. I would like to try them, sir. I think," Cavern said slowly, "that you are going to change how we think about warfare." As Jinu left the meeting room, the drill sergeant began writing his report to Galactic Command. He did not know how to explain what he had witnessed, but he knew the galaxy was about to learn something new about the species called humans outside. The other cadets watched Jinu walk across the training yard. Some looked scared, others looked excited. All of them knew they had just seen something that would change the Academy forever.